we congregate in this council chamber for the betterment of our fellow citizens. Lead us that we may do all things well. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Taberky?
Present.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Here.
Mr. Schulmeyer?
Present.
Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Here.
Mrs. Miller? Here. Ms. Hausfeld?
Here. Let the record show 6 members are present, 1 member is absent. Members of council, what is your pleasure on the reading of the last minutes?
Mr. President,
Mr. Taberky.
make a motion to dispense with the reading of the last minutes of the last meeting.
I'll second that.
A motion by Mr. Taberky, second by Ms. Hausfeld to dispense with the reading of the last minutes. Are there any remarks? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. Members of council, are there any errors or corrections, excuse me, to the minutes as submitted? Not, the minutes will stand as submitted. We'll move to reports of city officials. Mayor Stuchel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening. I have an announcement for the community from Greater Cincinnati Waterworks. The Water Forgiveness Program is helping Greater Cincinnati Waterworks customers in St. Bernard to avoid water shutoffs at their homes. Customers must demonstrate that they are experiencing economic hardship due to COVID-19 or be at or below the specific income levels. Greater Cincinnati Waterworks is forgiving past due amounts related to water and the City of Cincinnati Stormwater Services accrued during the pandemic during the period of March 1st, 2020 through September 30th, 2020. Customers can find via hard copy, mail, email, the application online to forgive.mygcww.org. The deadline to apply is Wednesday, March 31st. Property owners of residential property may apply, including landlords of single and two-family dwellings. Commercial properties do not qualify. Tenants who are responsible for the water utility bill may also apply. Once the customer qualifies, it may take up to 6 weeks to process for the customers to see the change on their bill. More information and applications online, again, are available at forgive.mygcww.org. Hard copy applications, including Spanish translated versions, are available upon request from Greater Cincinnati Waterworks at 591-7700 at the Cincinnati and Hamilton County Public Libraries and at all Cincinnati Recreation Centers. We will also have them available here at City Hall for residents to pick up for those that are not able to complete these online. For those of you that also, just an update, for those of you that have suffered a loss of a loved one from COVID-19, FEMA has announced that under the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act of 2021 and the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, FEMA will provide financial assistance for COVID-19 related funeral expenses incurred after January 20th, 2020. FEMA will begin to implement COVID-19 funeral assistance in April. Additional guidelines are being finalized and will be released to potential applicants and community partners as soon as possible. In the meantime, people who have had a COVID-19 funeral expense are encouraged to keep and gather their documentation. To be eligible for funeral assistance, you must meet these conditions. The death must have occurred in the United States, including the U.S. territories and the District of Columbia. The death certificate must indicate the death was attributed to COVID-19. The applicant must be a U.S. citizen, non-citizen national, or qualified alien who incurred funeral expenses after January 20, 2020. And there is no requirement for the deceased person to have been a U.S. citizen, non-citizen national, or qualified alien. How to apply. In April, FEMA will begin accepting applications. If you've had COVID-19 funeral expense, we encourage you to keep the other documentation. And we will keep you updated, and we'll also have these posted to the village website and Facebook page. But you will have to provide, again, a certified death certificate, funeral expense documents, and proof of funds received from other sources. We are also currently working on planning the German luau for this year. It is to be held August 6th and 7th, and Sunday the 8th is a possibility, but we are hoping that we can bring this great event back to the village. Also, the Easter Bunny will be traveling around the village on Saturday, April 3rd from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. We will publish the route, and I will be posting a link to Life 360 so that you can track the Easter Bunny as he makes his way around the village. I am also planning to have a Memorial Day ceremony this year, and details of this event will be announced. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Auditor, Ms. Brickway, and welcome back.
Thank you. Before I start my report, I'm just going to short and sweet. I can't thank the citizens of St. Bernard enough. The cards, the flowers, the food, the caring, the messages, just, you know, I'm not from here, but man, did I feel like I was a party here during this. And the prayers, thank you, thank you. And to my coworkers, thank you for working from home, and especially little Miss Heidi and Tommy for getting things off the printer and everything for me. You know, everybody's been a godsend. It's going to be a long road, but I'm starting here, and I just want to thank everybody. Whew, okay. The auditor's office provided the end of January revenue and expense spreadsheets to council and the administration. At the end of February, the village revenues were $1,387,495.42. Compared to last year, they are down $55,307.32. The expenses were $1,962,882.89. Compared to last year, those are down $59,950.32. The auditor's office prepared Ordinance 8, 2021 for tonight's meeting. It establishes a new cash fund, 50-1000 Employee Accumulated Sick Time Cash Fund, and creates a new line item, 50-01 Employee Accumulated Sick Time for the expenses. This ordinance transfers $652,219.98 from 5A19 General Fund transfer out, with $500,000 going into 07-1000, the Capital Improvements Cash Account, and $152,219.98 going into 50-1000, the Employee Accumulated Sick Time Cash Account. It moves $12,219.98 from 0167, which is the old Employee Accumulated Sick Time, into the new one, 50-01. It also has an additional appropriation of $40,000 into the same line item. Sorry. With the federal government announcing a third COVID relief fund, I began investigating what the village of St. Bernard would be receiving. No figures have been announced yet, but an allocation chart for the entire country has been released. I also talked with a representative from the state of Ohio who confirmed the amount I came up with. He said the initial estimate is $850,143.20 for St. Bernard. This is just an estimate and is subject to change. We are still waiting for the U.S. Treasury to finalize things before we'll know the exact amount to provide to each local government. Also, it is my understanding that we will only get half of the allocation within 2 months, and then the second half of the allocation 12 months later. So we will get a half an allocation in 2021 and the other half in 2022. It's also been reported that the governor is going to have a news conference March 31st, and some of this will be included. Still, again, no one knows if the exact amounts will be given then, but there was an allocation chart and we had .85, and after looking at what Cincinnati had, I kind of came up with that. That's what we're getting. So if anyone has any questions, let me know. Thank you, Mr. President. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Director of Law, Ms. Van Valkenburg.
Yes, thank you. Mr. DeBerke had asked a question last week, or excuse me, the committee of the whole meeting, concerning whether interest could be transferred or into the capital account, correct? I did some preliminary research. I didn't find anything really that said you could or couldn't do it. So I don't really have a hard and fast answer. Like I said, I didn't see anything that said you couldn't. I think probably it makes more sense to kind of look from a business angle what all the effort is involved in calculating that, because I have no idea what that is. And I don't even know how that account is necessarily set up. So I think that's probably best left to the auditor to address that. But I did want to let you know I at least looked into it. I don't see anything that's definitive one way or the other. Sorry. And that concludes my report.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Could
can
we
I
wait?
comment to what she said? 'Cause
Yeah, briefly, yeah.
Okay. Basically, as I explained in an email, our interest goes amongst all the funds, and it just divvies it up in the system. So it would be a little difficult to come up with an exact amount. So that's why I suggested, if that is really council's wishes, interest rates, we all know, are horrible right now, so just pick a small amount or something like that, and we can put that in there, and that would probably be a lot easier to do it that way.
All right, thank you. Treasurer, Mr. Ungar.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have the statement from the Star Ohio account for the village as of February 28th, 2021. Our total there was $5,819,055.72. And my printer at the house didn't work, so I don't have copies, but I will get them and put them in the mailbox for council. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Safety and Service Director, Mr. Paul.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just another reminder about Tire Collection Week. It is April 19th through the 23rd. Place your tires out on your normal trash days and we will pick them up for you. It is a free service the village offers once a year. At no other time do we take tires for trash. Our trash cans and recycle cans have arrived. They are $70 each. Come in or call to order. Re-record the serial numbers and deliver the cans to your residence. They are very sturdy cans and there is no markup on the price. To my community, negativity is in my way. Perhaps I am trying to alter the flow and swim upstream, wasting strokes. Oh, there you have it. More negativity with the thought of wasting strokes. Perhaps a few more strokes and something positive will happen, like realizing swimming is not necessary because you can stand. Positively amazing. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Tax Commissioner / Administrator, Ms. Helms.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll try to go as fast as I can. I got quite a bit here. I have the recap for the February 2021 tax report. Tax collections for February were $495,188. Tax refunds for February were $150,834. The village is down 19.84% in tax revenue from February of 2020. $58,257 in delinquent taxes with capital recovery. $103,634 in delinquent taxes with our attorney for judgment garnishment collection work. $9,340 is with the Ohio Attorney General's office. The e-file system is up and running. You must submit your supporting documents either by attachment on the e-file site or by sending in a copy of your documents to the tax office. Tax returns will not be finalized until we receive your W-2 and 1040 information. A few reminders: the tax filing deadline has been extended to May 17th. This does not extend your payment of your 2021 first quarter taxes, which are due on April 15th. St. Bernard tax return assistance is by appointment only. Do not email your tax return to the tax office. Please use the e-file portal located on the St. Bernard webpage under the tax department. There is a blip on line 7 of the tax return, the paper form. It combines overpayment forward credits and taxes paid to another municipality. I cannot fix this as this form is produced by our software company. Please just combine those amounts together and place the amount on that line. I audit all tax returns and will understand what you're reporting. I'm working on a better form for next year. Also, I'd like council to place on the table tonight resolution number 2, opposing House Bill 157. House Bill 157 will repeal Section 29 of House Bill 197, which instructs municipalities to continue withholding income tax at a taxpayer's place of work, even if that taxpayer is working from home due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Opposing House Bill 157 also impresses upon the Ohio legislature that both businesses and municipalities need enough time to prepare for the changes and impacts of future permanent work-from-home policies. As always, if you have any questions, please call the office at 513-242-7710. That concludes my report.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Mr. DeBerke.
make a motion to put Resolution 2, 2021 on the table tonight.
I'll second that.
A motion by Mr. DeBerke, seconded by Mr. Ray Culbertson to place resolution number 2, 2021 on the table. Are there any remarks? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. We'll now move to reports of standing committees. Finance, Mr. DeBerke.
No report.
Thank you. Safety, Mr. Ray Culbertson.
Thanks, Mr. President. I've got the fire department report here for February. There were a total of 46 fire incidents, which included 3 structural fires, 2 vehicle fires, and 8 auto accidents. Mutual aid from the fire side of things was given to Norwood once, Elmwood Place twice, Reading once, and Delhi once. Mutual aid was received from Norwood twice, Elmwood Place once, Reading once, Little Miami once, Springfield Township once, and Wyoming once. EMS, there was a total of 85 EMS incidents. Some details of interest include 3 non-breathers, 4 unconscious, 10 auto accidents, and 1 overdose. Mutual aid on the EMS side of things was given to Elmwood Place 15 times, Little Miami once, and Springfield Township once, and mutual aid was received from Norwood twice. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Service, Mr. Schultmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've got the 2020 storm sewer report and numbers. In 2020, we had no sewers repaired by the village. We had 7 sewers repaired by outside contractors. 106 sewers were cleaned by the village with 285 cubic yards of debris removed. Village leaf truck operated from 2nd November until 1st of December, collecting 600 cubic yards of leaves. Street sweeper removed 263 yards of debris from the roads. 56 tons of salt were spread by road crews to improve winter road conditions. 220 gallons of used oil were recycled to local businesses for use as fuel oil. Mr. President, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Public improvements, Mr. Bob Culbertson.
Thank you, Mr. President. The CIC met this past Tuesday to discuss several topics, one being the Long John Silver's property. We are in the process of getting that parcel all squared away and look for potential sending out to get bids on demo in the next several months. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that goes as planned. Thanks to all of those who are interested in the mowing contracts with CIC. We reviewed those applications and have selected, and the person that had the winning bid will be notified. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Marketing, Ms. Miller.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a couple announcements. The April newsletter will go out next Friday. All submissions are due by Wednesday, March 31st. We are back in baseball season. If anyone is interested in purchasing a memorial brick to be placed at Frank Robinson Field, please contact Recreation. The cost is $100. This concludes my report.
Thank you. Business and industry, Ms. Housefeld.
No report, Mr. President.
The committee of the whole has been sent to the administration as well as council. There are no communications this evening, so clerk, could you please give the first reading of resolution number 2, 2021, please?
Resolution 2, 2021, a resolution opposing House Bill 157, amending the law regarding withholding municipal earned income tax for those working virtually and/or at home, and declaring an emergency.
Members of council, you've heard the first reading of resolution number 2, 2021. What is your pleasure?
Mr. President,
Mr. DeBerke.
make a motion, we dispense with the second and third readings.
I'll
I'll
second
second
that.
that, Mr. President.
Motion by Mr. DeBerke, second by Mr. Ray Culbertson to suspend with the second and third reading of resolution number 2, 2021. Are there any remarks?
Mr. President,
Mr. DeBerke.
just a question. In section 2, you say give a copy to Governor DeWine, Steve Shabbat, and Senator Sherrod Brown. Why are we sending them to federal representatives and senators?
I'm not sure. I mean, I could send it to whomever that you want me to, but I know that the Center for Local Government asked that all municipalities at least get this resolution out and to make sure that our state representatives were sent copies of it. But, I mean.
But the
I can
state
look-
representatives aren't listed on here, just Congressman Shabbat and Senator Brown.
Oh, I can look into it and find out.
And if they're sending them to federal, why not Portman? He's a House Senator too.
Yeah, I can look into it. I mean, they basically sent this out I think this week. They hurried up and got this out as soon as possible. So, yeah, I can look into it and find out.
Any other remarks?
Mr. President,
Mr. DeBerke.
Well, make a lot of people angry. I've been preaching since the COVID started that we need to be looking into this, that not everybody's going to come back to work. I don't think it's right. we're collecting income taxes for people who are not in St. Bernard working. The best estimate I'm hearing is anywhere from a third to half of the people will be working from home from now on. So I think we need to start planning on what's going to happen. So if if people aren't working from St. Bernard.
Thank you. Any other remarks?
Mr. President,
Ms. Helms?
I could add a few things on that. I've been following the Ways and Means Committee hearings. I've watched the three specifically that talked about this. And there's strong arguments on both sides. You know, the state, you know, there's people that are saying that it's unconstitutional, that they, you know, we shouldn't be allowed to keep it, they should be allowed to request a refund. And then there's others saying, you know, because of the emergency of the pandemic, cities weren't prepared for this, it's going to totally shift how everything's going. So right now, there's a lot of litigation out there for both sides. It's a huge fight. It's probably going to go through the better part of the year. I mean, if I had to put money down on which way it's going to go, I wouldn't, because I really honestly don't know. I've talked all the time to Sharonville, to Blue Ash, to other cities to kind of get a gauge of where they're at. Right now, if you ask for a refund for the COVID working from home, we are putting it, you know, we're acknowledging the refund, but I'm putting it in a suspended status. As with other cities like Sharonville, we're doing the same thing until we have more information. But right now, you know, it is a big fight.
Mr. President,
Mr. Brown Culbertson?
is there any, you know, I agree with what Don said in part of yours. I don't think we should be collecting from from people who aren't working here that have no business in St. Bernard right now because of COVID and they're working from home 100% remotely. With that being said, do we have any issues, I guess, if for whatever reason this gets challenged and you know, in a year's time you have a bunch of people that have been working from home coming back for refunds? That this was unconstitutional to hold money when they had, you know, they weren't working in the village, they don't live in the village. You know, do we run the risk that, you know, the court says, hey, that's unconstitutional, that's taxation without representation, and now we gotta issue refunds?
Mr. President?
Ms. Helms?
That was discussed, Linda and I discussed that from Sharonville, and that's why we're putting it in a suspended status. We're not denying their refund. We're sending them a letter saying that until this litigation is over with, you know, because if I go ahead and give them a refund and the courts side with us, it's going to be hard to get that money back. So it's not, I'm not telling them it's denied, but because there's such a strong argument and a fight on both sides, the cities have decided to just put it in a suspended status, notify the taxpayer that we acknowledge your refund, we have it sitting here, but we're going to wait until this legislation, you know, is looked at and the litigation's over. If I was to just totally deny it without explanation, it does put you kind of in a position where you could, you know, be taken to court, you know, unconstitutional if we don't win. But by putting it in a suspended status and acknowledging it, there's a good chance I may have to pay a little bit of interest to people. But I'm not denying their refund. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Mr. President.
Ms. Brown Culbertson?
Just approximately, do you know how much is in that suspended status phase right now? And you know, I guess my concern is, you know, there's probably a lot of people that don't even submit taxes that work in St. Bernard because it just gets taken out, and it gets overturned, you know, and then all of a sudden now it's like, well, heck, I'm going back and I'm going to file a return in St. Bernard to get a refund.
Mr. President?
Ms. Helms?
Well, right now I only have one in that status. And I have an Excel spreadsheet because I'm all about spreadsheets and keeping things organized, where I'm keeping track of, you know, because if someone applied for a refund that is not the COVID related, just a general, their usual refund, I'm giving them that. But I may be, you know, might be partial and then the other portion suspended, and I explain that to them in a letter. You know, I don't know how many people are going to ask for it. You know, they will be told that if you ask for a refund and say you work, you know, from home in Blue Ash, but you're working at P&G, you know, in St. Bernard, I have an obligation and a due diligence to report to the city of Blue Ash that, Tommy Sue got a refund, and, Blue Ash is entitled to some of that because he says he was working from home. So all the cities will be reporting that as well. I've been doing this a long time, and I've never seen such a mess. I'm keeping track of it. Peggy and I talk about this quite a bit. We're keeping our spreadsheets. I'm following the law. I'm talking to the other cities. And right now, I think that's about as far as I can go with it until I have more information.
Mr. President,
Mr. DeBerke.
I remember Eddie had a big pie chart he made up. I think you've referenced it before. What is our breakdown of individual income tax? Do you remember?
Mr. President?
Oh.
Actually, that pie chart that Eddie did was actually something I started when I worked for the city of Silverton, to kind of put at ease the taxpayers, where is your money going? What's it spent on a municipal level? If I had a little bit more time, I'd love to do that again, because I think it's good for the taxpayers to know, I'm paying all this money, what am I getting for it? Again, this is a bad time of the year for me to try to take on a little project like that. It's a little time consuming, but I would like to bring that back and let them see that. I think a good portion of our revenues, and Peggy will tell you, comes from my department. If some of this law goes through, we're going to have those hard conversations and sit down and think how we restructure and go forward, as will all the other cities. It's not just on St. Bernard.
Mr. President.
Mr. Ray Colson.
Don chime in. I think the direction he's going is, what percentage of your revenues come from individual taxpayers versus business profits and loss? I think that's what Donnie was asking. Is that right?
Mr. President, well, withholding is our biggest. So we have individual net profit and withholdings. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but net profit is our smallest, because the businesses can take all these losses and exemptions, and we don't get a whole lot of income from net profit. Individual would be our second lowest, because a lot of the individuals in town we give reciprocity. So we give a tax break. So say you live in St. Bernard, but you work in Cincinnati, we give reciprocity for that. So our biggest group, and where the most revenue comes from, is obviously from our withholdings for people who work in the village of St. Bernard. I can get you the precise numbers if you want, but I don't have those in front of me. They change all the time.
All right. Any other remarks?
Mr. President,
Ms. Brickman.
first of all, I'd like to commend Leanne. She has spent a lot of time on this and researching it, and we've spent a lot of time talking on it. But I think you all kind of know the answer. You know the big companies we have here, and if this happens, it's going to wipe us. So as much as on a personal thing you might support things, I think we also need to think about the residents, the services, and things like that, because that's who you represent. So if this goes through, it could be horrible. But like I said to her, I think you're going to see multiple sides, because I think it'll bankrupt Cincinnati, Cleveland, all these large cities. So now what are we all going to do? It all sounds nice to sit up there and say that, but when nobody has any, I just can't even fathom what would happen to the city of Cincinnati if something like this went through. And I think we need to really look at that, and if that's where their main job is St. Bernard, I look at it differently than you. If I work for the city of St. Bernard and I'm working from home somewhere I do live here, but Loveland, I still work for the city of St. Bernard, okay? So I would have no issue paying my taxes to the place where I work just because I'm working in my living room. So I look at it differently, because that's the city where my main building is. You gotta pay taxes somewhere anyway. But and I know you don't agree, but the point is, if this would go through, it would crush us, like you said. So I would recommend that we support this resolution.
Mr. President?
Ms. Helms.
There was a couple other items that I had jotted down when I was watching all the hearings with the Ways and Means Committee. A couple of the things they brought up were it would affect our bond rating. Another thing too is you have to think about economic development. I've given this example before. You have that Paycor building sitting in Norwood. It's a brand new building. I think it's only been there for a couple years. And then when the pandemic hit, they're all working from home. You've got an empty building. So then you have to look at blight in cities. Again, economic development. There's just so many questions. And one of the legislators, during these hearings was saying, in the future, they can see, with computers and people, this was like, it brought everything forward that they expected would happen in 10 years, kind of was brought forward to the here and now. Will it happen down the road? Do we have to keep that in mind as we plan this, with the city's budgets and stuff going forward? Probably. I think what the cities are asking for is either a time to transition into this, and not hit us all at once. And that's what's going to be so devastating for cities is, all of a sudden, oh, we've got to give back, $2-3 million that we weren't expecting to. I think cities are asking, we see that times are changing. Can we have a transition with this? But again, I'm watching it and I'm spending a great deal of time in my own time, watching different programs and reading different articles.
All right. All right, clerk, will you please call the roll on suspension?
Mr. DeBerke?
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
Mr. Schulmeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Aye.
Mrs. Miller? Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
6 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Members of council, what is your pleasure on adoption?
Mr. President,
Mr. Ray Culbertson.
I make a motion that we adopt resolution number 2, 2021.
I'll second that.
A motion by Mr. Ray Culbertson, second by Mr. Schultmeyer to adopt resolution number 2, 2021. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. DeBerke?
No.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
Mr. Schulmeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Aye.
Mrs. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
5 ayes, 1 nay. Resolution number 2, 2021 is adopted as read. Clerk, will you please give the first reading of ordinance number 6, 2021?
Ordinance number 6, 2021, an ordinance approving the editing and inclusion of certain ordinances as parts of the various component codes of the codified ordinances of St. Bernard, Ohio, revising the traffic and general offenses codes to comply with state law and declaring an emergency.
Members of council, you've heard the first reading of ordinance number 6, 2021. What is your pleasure?
Mr. President,
Mr. DeBerke?
make a motion to dispense with the second and third readings of ordinance 6, 2021.
I'll second that, Mr. President.
A motion by Mr. DeBerke, second by Ms. Hausfeld to suspend with the second and third reading of ordinance number 6, 2021. Are there any remarks? Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address council on ordinance number 6? Not, clerk, will you please call the roll on suspension?
Mr. DeBerke?
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
Mr. Schulmeyer? Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Aye.
Mrs. Miller? Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
6 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Members of council, what is your pleasure on adoption of ordinance 6?
Mr. President,
Mr. DeBerke?
make a motion to adopt ordinance 7, 2021.
Ordinance
Oh, I'm sorry, 6,
Six.
for the wrong one. Ordinance 6, 2021.
I'll second that.
A motion by Mr. DeBerke, second by Mr. Ray Culbertson to adopt ordinance number 6, 2021. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. DeBerke?
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
Mr. Schulmeyer? Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Aye.
Mrs. Miller? Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
6 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Ordinance number 6, 2021 is adopted as read. Clerk, will you please give the first reading of ordinance number 7, 2021?
Ordinance number 7, 2021, an ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Safety and Service to enter into a contract with the Village of Elmwood Place, Ohio, to provide emergency medical transport and paramedic services to the Village of Elmwood Place and declaring an emergency.
Members of council, you've heard the first reading of ordinance number 7, 2021. What is your pleasure?
President,
Mr. DeBerke?
make a motion to dispense with the reading, second and third readings of ordinance 7, 2021.
Second that.
A motion by Mr. DeBerke, second by Mr. Ray Culbertson to suspend the second and third reading of ordinance number 7, 2021. Are there any remarks? Oh, sorry. Yes, are there any remarks? If not, is there anyone in the audience wishing to address council on ordinance 7? If not, clerk, will you please call the roll on suspension?
Mr. DeBerke?
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
Mr. Schulmeyer? Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Aye.
Mrs. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
6 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Members of council, what is your pleasure on adoption?
Mr. President,
Mr. DeBerke?
make a motion to adopt ordinance 7, 2021 as read.
I'll second that, Mr. President.
A motion by Mr. DeBerke, second by Ms. Hausfeld to adopt ordinance number 7, 2021. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. DeBerke?
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
Mr. Schulmeyer? Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Aye.
Mrs. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
6 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Ordinance number 7, 2021 is adopted as read. Clerk, will you please give the first reading of ordinance number 8, 2021?
Ordinance number 8, 2021, authorizing and directing the auditor to create a new cash fund and new line item, transfer funds, move appropriations, and provide additional appropriations, and declaring an emergency.
Members of council, you've heard the first reading of ordinance number 8, 2021. What is your pleasure?
Mr. President,
Mr. DeBerke?
make a motion to suspend with the second and third reading of ordinance 8, 2021.
I'll second that, Mr. President.
A motion by Mr. DeBerke, seconded by Ms. Housefeld to suspend with the second and third reading of ordinance number 8, 2021. Are there any remarks?
Mr. President,
Mr. DeBerke?
I'd like to thank this administration, this council. I've been preaching to put money aside for sick time payout and the capital improvement funds for 10, 12 years. I'm happy we're finally doing it.
Thank you. Any other remarks? If not, is there anyone in the audience wishing to address council on ordinance 8? If not, clerk, will you call the roll on suspension?
Mr. DeBerke?
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
Mr. Schulmeyer? Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Aye.
Mrs. Miller? Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
6 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Members of council, what is your pleasure on adoption?
Mr. President,
Mr. DeBerke?
make a motion to adopt the ordinance 8, 2021 as read.
Second that, Mr. President.
A motion by Mr. DeBerke, second by Ms. Housefeld to adopt ordinance number 8, 2021. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. DeBerke?
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
Mr. Schulmeyer? Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Aye.
Mrs. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
6 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Ordinance number 8, 2021 is adopted as read. Does anyone on council have anything under old business?
Mr. President,
Mr. DeBerke?
just curious, Jonathan, we got any news on economic developer? We still looking for one, or?
Mr. President, as of right now, I suspended this for a short period of time to try to see how this plays out. I know economic development is important, but I'm looking at potential of consolidating a position that might include this role as well, rather than the new hire right off the bat. But I'm kind of watching this before we have I would say, a well-compensated salary come in until we know a little bit more. I was just hoping to get a little bit more news here. I still want to do it, but I may look at, again, consolidating another position that might conclude the same role, but I'll update you on that.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Mr. DeBerke?
this is for Tommy, I guess. Are we looking at doing anything in the little tot lots? I mean, people were asking me, the lot equipment's old, need out of shape, and
Repeat it, are we talking
the tot
playgrounds?
lots, the little playgrounds, yes.
We repair them as best we can, but to replace them would be, a slide cost us $8,000. So if you went to replace them, it would be quite expensive.
Could you check into that ODNR grant I talked about last? 2 weeks ago?
Already have application going in, and he said we look pretty good. So,
Thank you.
Mr. President, so with that, whether or not playground equipment could be added to that grant application as well?
Mr. President?
Mr. Paul?
That may be possible, but it's more geared toward trails and, but I believe that I had read when I first looked that playgrounds are part of it.
Thank you.
Mr. President.
Ms. Housefeld?
Tommy, I didn't get back in touch with you after I sent you that text the other day. Was that swing set taken care of up at Tower?
Mr. President?
Mr. Paul?
Yes, it was.
Thank you.
So all
I
of it.
appreciate that.
Yep.
Anyone else under old business?
Mr. President, I did
Mayor.
have one thing. So, and maybe I missed this, but I don't believe so. We were supposed to, Cindy, of course, was not able to be here this evening due to having foot surgery today. But as far as the Laws, Contracts, and Claims Committee was supposed to be rescheduling for the meeting that was supposed to be held last night to April 7th at 6:30. I know there was a communication that was sent after that was sent out that I know Mr. Schulmeyer is unavailable that day. I don't know if we need, if we can reschedule, you know, to another date, or whether we should stick with that date, but that wasn't brought up tonight about, you know, the next Laws, Contracts, and Claims Committee meeting that was to be held before our next cow. So whether we, you know, reach back to Cindy and try to, you know, since she's head of the committee, and have her send out an email, then we can have it announced. But whether or not we have to have, you know, that announced this evening, I just need to verify that.
Mr. President,
Mr. Ray Culberson.
I don't believe we need to announce anything. We don't know the date, so I don't believe we need to announce anything
And
at this time. I
till we
think
hear from Ms.
Yeah.
Bettinghouse. Okay. Anyone else under old business?
Mr. President,
Mr. Bob Culberson.
I don't know, Jonathan, Valerie, I think Valerie, I sent an email about updates to the charter a while back. I didn't know if you had a chance to look into it, and I know, Jonathan, you said something about potentially putting together a committee to look at exploring changes to charter. Just trying to see if we can get that ball moving, especially with maybe the potential changes that might be coming with the remote working.
Mr. President, don't mean to cut Valerie off, but as far as, yes, that, and part of what I was getting at in the idea of responding to Mr. Taberky and consolidating some responsibilities and trying to look potentially for someone that could actually assist us there. I have an attorney that will be scheduling a meeting with that basically guided the village of Silverton through their entire process. So going to kind of get lay some groundwork there, and I'll get back in touch with you, and then we can try to see the best way to start the process to address all of the amendments that might want to be made to the charter. So no, that is definitely forthcoming in the very near future.
All right. Anyone else under old business? Does anyone have anything under new business? If not, is there anyone in the audience wishing to address council this evening? If not, what is council's pleasure on the absent member?
Mr. President,
Mr. Diverkey?
make a motion to excuse the absent member.
I'll second that.
A motion by Mr. Diverkey, second by Mr. Ray Culberson to excuse the absent member. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. The next committee of the whole will be Thursday, April 8th at 7 p.m. At this time, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. President,
Mr. Ray Culberson.
make a motion, we adjourn.
A motion by Mr. Ray Culberson, second by Ms. Housefeld to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.